What is it about a place that makes it special and unique? A space where people gather and realize they're at peace, where they belong, and that they are home. Perhaps it's the place itself, or even the people who live there. Maybe even the love shown throughout the years. Whatever it was that made 704 South 11th Street in Haskell, Texas so special, made it an atmosphere never felt anywhere else. It all began when Lena Overcash and her family traveled to Texas in a covered wagon during or just after the Great Depression. Shortly after their arrival in Texas on June 19, 1939, they decided to settle in Haskell and purchase land for only $186.50. It was lot number 11, block 16, the address that came to be known as 704 South 11th Street.
Granny was one of those people that was a product of her environment. She was a product of her time. She came into Texas with her family from Kentucky, either during or shortly thereafter the Great Depression, right? So they didn't have a lot of money, and from what she told us, they came over actually, like the good old days in a covered wagon, get pulled by a horse. But, they came into Texas.
Shortly after the land purchase, George and Lena had a small 12 by 20 house delivered. Not only would this be their forever home, but the beginning of a new chapter in their lives.
I'm not really clear on, when she met Granddad, Nolan, and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, from what I understand, that house there at 704, when they got it, was their first home. And at the time, it was basically just a one-room house.
At first it was pretty small. Then she built on rooms. That room is bigger. Built on 3 concrete porches.
When we first moved there, there was just that little bitty house. It would just be a living room. There was no indoor bathroom. There was just indoor. There was just a living room, and then the kitchen and that back bedroom back there was all that was there.
I remember Mama. I believe they went way down south to where her sister-in-law was. I want to say Huntsville, but I'm not for sure on that.
Although, at the time, the house was small, that would soon change due to an unfortunate death in the family.
That would have been Uncle Melton's sister passed away. He had Nettie. And Uncle Mountain had one sister, Melton, they call him out. Melton had one sister that lived in Huntsville. And she passed away, and she inherited that money, which was quite a sum of money probably at that time.
My Nettie's dad, that's right. And she left part of that. Well, she was raised as her mother. So she wanted the house, she lived in Salt. And the money divided between mother and her right niece, her niece. So she got $6,000. And your mother, I remember the day the check gave me, the passport got about all of on it. Out there where Texas. Mother went out to get the mail. And overhauled her check in the mail for $6,000. I was so envious you won't believe how envious I was. I thought she'd give us progress. But she did over the years for bits and pieces at a time. I won like 1,000 at one time, but she didn't give it. I didn't ask her either. But that's how she got that house built her.
And it wasn't long after Lena Overcash got that $6,000 grant that she hired 2 gentlemen to add on to her dream house.
She got to thinking about it while she wasn't done. And there's an old man lives on the other street.
Jim Haynes and Cecil Payne were the ones that had the rhythm. I remember that.
As you can see with this 3D animation, Lena Overcast's dream house was finally complete, with new added bedroom, utility room, even new porches on the front, back, and utility room, new siding, new trims on the doors and windows, and with all that new added room, Lena Overcash took full advantage of having her sisters and sister-in-laws all come over, gather together, sit in the living room, and talk about the Lord.
I can remember sitting as a little boy, I was over there, and when all of her sisters and sister-in-laws would get together and sit around in a circle there in the living room. I remember sitting there one day, and his Aunt Jean, Aunt Howard, Aunt Lorraine, and my mom, and 2 or 3 of the cousins, probably Sig Joe, and Merle. I don't know, there's a bunch of them, about 50, and it's all trying to talk at one time. I mean, one of them said something before that get said, and I thought, how can y'all hear anything? All of y'all are talking at the same time. And it's like, man. And Aunt Lena, she just sat there. She never was very vocal on things.
Unless she wanted to be, and that was very rare.
Basically, when the sisters all got together, it ended up them talking about the Lord and stuff. So I guess that's where we got our first knowledge, about God. Because no matter what conversations or whatever, it always ended up about the Lord.
After Sylvia McGee and Dean McGee married, Sylvia moved on and began a family of her own. In fact,
Chad, Chris, and Sylvia moved into the 704 house from a house they first occupied in rural Texas.
I remember the earliest memory I have of it is actually when they were touring the house thinking about buying it with the real estate agent. I was with them, I don't know if you were, and I can't even remember if Dad was there, but I know Mom was. And we were going through the house, looking at the rooms and whatnot. So I remember that.
I have a lot of memories of living in that house in rural. A lot of memories of it, actually. I remember my dad, Dean McGee, working in the oil field and being gone for most of the time and most of the day. And of course, being a little boy, I was in my own little world. And my world at that time consisted of watching cartoons on TV, playing in my room.
I remember, just doing stuff out in the backyard, and, we had that swimming pool out back behind the barn for a while. We had the swing set, we had the sandbox right underneath the tree that was there by the alley.
And I remember, we didn't have a Frisbee. So me and my brother got creative, and we got this hubcap. And we started throwing it around like a Frisbee. And again, we had this really big yard, and we can go really far distances, and just swung that thing around. And I remember my brother just gave it all he had, and slung that thing as high in the air as he could go, because I encouraged him to do it. And I remember just looking up, and that thing, that whole hubcap high in the air, just going right over my head. And the sound that it made, Of course, it went right across the alley road and right into a grassy, weedy area. But damn, we had so much fun with that. It was really, really cool. Life was good in rural Texas, in that big yellow house. But one day, Curious George, Chad McGee, nearly got killed. I don't know what possessed me, what came over me, why I even did it. I remember that in that old barn that there was a ginormous, huge wooden box that my dad made, customly made, and put rattlesnakes in it. A bunch of rattlesnakes. And, you know, walking around the box, I can just hear them, you know, and, and I was just curious. What are these things that are in this box making that noise? And I was told by my mother, my father, my brother, and a few other people, do not open up that box. Do not even think about it. First off, you don't tell that to a little boy who is curious. So, Curious George here, one day went out to that barn, to that box, got on a step stool, stepped on the very top of that, which actually, considering my size at the time, put me right over the top of that box, of that big old wooden box. And of course, there was no lock on it. Now we're talking. Woo, baby. I open up that box and I look into it, and like from my midsection, like from my waist, I am just dangling there, just looking in. With a flashlight, just looking in. I don't know if it was my father, if it was my brother, somebody found me, drug my ass out of that box, and my butt got lit up. I'm not joking. My mother, I think, literally broke the world record of spanking my ass because, and chewing me out at the exact same time, because she understood. She knew the danger. She understood what could have happened to me. Curious George being small, little, and stupid at the time, and I didn't know any better. I thought, hey, oh cool, look at that. Hey, okay. And needless to say, I never did that again. Ever. When you're able to sleep standing up because you can't lay down and you can't sit down, you learn your lesson real quick. While Chad was exploring the snake pit, Gloria Faye Slayton was her own woman.
She was more Gayla's age and my sister Jaylynn. See, Donna was my age, and then Beverly was Linda's age. And of course Eugene was in between, but there were no boys. I mean, my brothers were much older. And so Gloria palled around with Gayla and Jaylynn. So when we'd go up there, they'd all go riding around, and there was, several boys around town that they all knew, and they had a lot of fun.
In fact, Gloria got married at 704.
I don't remember what month it was, Gloria. come home and told us that she was going to get married. They were thinking about doing it December. I said, well, that's a good date. We can talk this wedding together. Jimmy was in the army. He was going to have to go back to the army. So they wanted to get married before he left.
Jimmy fishing married first. Yeah, just waiting, which wouldn't be James' dad. Oh, okay. Gloria was married to him first.
So we just started what we could do. Which is what we did. I baked the wedding cake. I put 3 carnation flowers on top. They were dyed pink.
Right.
And I can't remember where Gloria got her wedding dress or what kind it was. I see that kind of runs some thoughts.
Right.
But
You remember who the preacher was?
I think it's Brother Smith.
Even though Gloria was a huge part of the family, Chad McGee didn't really know Gloria that well, but admired that when she wanted to lose weight, she could. Gloria, she always stayed to herself. She was her own woman. She did her own thing. One thing I always admired about Gloria is that if she really wanted to, she could lose weight, man. I mean, she had it down pat. You know, all these people, you know, me being included, struggle with weight and struggle with the, you know, to try to lose weight. Gloria never struggled. She didn't BS around, man. When she wanted to lose weight, she did it. And the way that she did it, she went on a yogurt diet. She ate nothing but yogurt. Now, I don't know if she ever did any exercise or worked on her cardio or anything like that. I just know she went on a yogurt diet and the weight just fell right off of her. And she was a very beautiful woman, very strikingly beautiful. And I know my mom was jealous of that for a while, you know, because you know, she's like, damn it, why can I not be as beautiful as you, you know? And Gloria, you know, she's like, you know, I got the genes, baby. And, yeah. While Gloria was being her own woman and doing her own thing, Chad McGee, on the other hand, when he's not looking for danger, he was...
You never opened your mouth.
I know, you know, what's so amazing is I was so shy back then.
Very quiet, very shy, reserved.
Yeah.
Observant.
Right? To know me back then and to know me now, you're like, okay, where did the Chad know? Where did the Chad McGee that I knew from way back when? Because you're not that same guy now.
No, not at all.
But I mean, honestly, my biggest thing was I was very shy.
Yes, I
Very
agree.
shy. And you can see that look in my eyes. I mean, as teachers, you know, you can look at someone and go, ah, he's shy.
It's quiet. Right.
Right?
Quiet.
Exactly. As shy as Chad McGee was, he was very lucky to have a brother that he could always rely on. Honestly, I really wouldn't know how my life would be if I didn't have a brother. I came real close of having a sister, but she was stillborn, so I was blessed of having a brother. And I really wouldn't know where I would be today if I didn't have a brother. And that's the truth. it wasn't too long after that, everything changed forever.
That's what it is, and we really liked that house and everything was really good until, Dad did what he did and they had to they got divorced and Mom couldn't afford to keep the house anymore. So we ended up having to move back to Haskell.
My dad, Dean McGee, doing what he did, making the decisions that he made and the choices that he made had major consequences. And with those consequences came uncertainty and a really dark, scary time for all of us as a family.
Made arrangements, blah, 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 and like everybody else does, and we moved. And like I say, when we first moved, I believe we went to the apartment complex there in Haskell.
Scared, mad, upset, Chris, Chad, and Sylvia knew with scary, uncertain times staring them in the face, they had each other and they wasn't going to let something like this crush them. We didn't know what was next, what was going to be next. We just knew at the time that Dad had done some things that he should not have done, and it really put Mother, Sylvia McGee, in a really bad spot, in a really tough position. Being a mother of two boys, my father working in the oil field, he was making a lot of money. I don't think my mom was at that time was working. I'm not sure, but I know he was, and he was making a lot of good money. And with that money, we were able to, afford that house and roll. And due to the fact of what he did and the decisions that he chose, Mother knew she had to make the right choice for me and Chris, for her sons.
Well, there was no conversation. I mean, we all knew why it came about. If you want to get, really detailed about it, Dad went off and did what he did, and they, like I said, ended up getting divorced, and he wasn't contributing to the finances anymore, so Mom couldn't afford the mortgage payment on the house. Quite simple. And they're the one there in rural. We had to move, right? There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was just financial reasons we had to get out of there. So we, made arrangements, blah, 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 and like everybody else does, and we moved. And like I say, when we first moved, I believe we went to the apartment complex there in Haskell.
Chris, Chad, and Sylvia would move into apartment C at the Haskell Housing Authority. But due to unfortunate situations and circumstances, that didn't last very long.
For, again, financial reasons, to try to save money and whatnot, move in there with, at the time, Granny and Gloria, there at the house, at 704.
Their lights were turned off, and the property said, we realized that we gotta have to do something. Especially about with the nurses go. So I went to my mother's house and talked to her. She said, y'all can move in here on me. And I thought to myself, how in the world is that possible? What are we going to do with the furniture?
Lena Overcash accepted Chris, Chad, and Sylvia with open arms, with no hesitation, at her house at 704 South 11th Street in Haskell, Texas, because that was the type of person Lena Overcash was. A loving, caring soul.
Lance, the best that I can remember, she was just, always a sweet, good woman. All of Mama's family, she always put a bird on their last of our name, like Gayla Bird.
Oh, really?
Bird. Yeah. And Sherry Bird, Linda Bird. I don't know why she put Bird behind our name, but she always did. And, of course, it's the memories I have, a lot is what Mama had told us back when they were young. And their mother died, with cancer. And Aunt Lena then took her daddy and Helen and Sylvie. And, she raised those two girls. So not only did she have a family of her own, but she took on another family. So, she had to be a very wonderful person to do that, Chad.
My grandmother, Lena Overcash, she was a very unique person. Her whole life was nothing but love. And, she was very protective of me. She was very protective of me and my brother. Because, I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't walk out the front door or the back door or play in the front yard or backyard or anywhere around the area without her constantly screaming at me, please, please be careful, don't get hurt, please be where I can see you.
Miracle in itself. It is. It is just a miracle for someone. She would have given her life. She would have, everything is, where's Chad? Where's Chad? I do not want him hurt. She was consumed with your care. And I remember that so well.
Shortly after, Chris, Chad, and Sylvia moved in to the 704 house. Sylvia and her sister Gloria clashed.
There was a huge fight between Mom and Gloria. And her and Gloria living in such proximity to one another and them being siblings and whatnot. And essentially, Gloria had established her house the way she wanted to run her house. It was Granny's house, but at the same time she lived there. So she was set in her ways of how things needed and wanted to be done. So obviously when we moved in, all that dynamic changed. And I'm not sure if that's really what started the fight or not, but I know that it lasted for at least a couple of hours, to where they were standing in the living room just screaming at one another. They never really got to blows or anything, but it was just back and forth. And I believe it was at that moment, if she didn't say it, she decided it, that she was going to leave. That she had had enough, that she wanted her own place, and she was going to get the hell out of there. And she did. She ended up, ironically, she moved a few streets down to that house that was there by the veterinary clinic.
And she stayed there for a pretty good while.
So Mom, at that point, once Gloria had moved out, took over her room, and then me, you, and Granny took over that back bedroom.
With Chad Chris, and Sylvia now settled in at 704, Sylvia could concentrate on her nursing school.
When we first moved there to Haskell, she was working. Actually, she bounced around from job to job, but eventually she landed there at the nursing home. But she was a member of the kitchen staff, right? But knowing that that wasn't a long-term solution, and seeing the nurses and whatnot around her, it was a pretty quick decision that she was going to go back to school and go to the nursing program there at the hospital in Stamford. And it took 3 or 4 years for her to get through it, and she became a nurse. And it's not something that she ever really aspired to do when she was younger. Some people have, I want to do this and I want to do that, and they follow it through until it happens. Although she was always ambitious, she again was a product of her time, and children of the 40s and 50s, they were expected, especially women, obviously, to get married and have a family and just be a housewife and take care of the house, which is what she did for many years, while her and Dad were together and whatnot. But the minute all that changed, she understood the need to change with it. So whenever something would happen, whether it was a car issue or a financial issue or house issue or whatever it was, she formulated a plan and figured out a way to solve it.
After going to nursing school for all those years, finally graduating was the proudest moment in Sylvia Jo McGee's life. When my mom made that decision, that life-changing decision, to take that giant leap and go to nursing school, she went to nursing school, honestly, at the Stamford Memorial Hospital, which was for her, which was really awesome, because she didn't have to go too far out of town, too far out of her way, to go to school. And it took her a few years, but I'll never forget the day she graduated. You couldn't remove that smile off of her face if you tried. A plastic surgeon couldn't remove that smile, because she knew she'd done it. Damn it, she did it. She went through it, she got through it, she survived, she didn't quit, she didn't give up, she didn't walk away, she refused to give in, she refused to quit, she refused to give up, and she did it. She did it. She did it for me. She did it for Chris. She did it for her mother. She did it for all of us. And looking at the pictures that was posted in the paper, you could see that smile, that glow that was coming from her, like, yes! I did it. Now we're okay. Now we are secure. Now everything's going to be alright. Everything's going to be alright. After graduating nursing school, working full-time at the Stamford Memorial Hospital as a certified, licensed LVN nurse, Sylvia McGee had provided financial stability for her family like they never knew before. Then came Christmas 1985 that Chad McGee will forever cherish. One of my fondest memories of being at 704 was the Christmas of 1985. I remember it so vividly. I remember getting out of bed so excited, jumping out of bed, getting dressed, and just heading on into the living room and looking at these presents as far as my eyes could see, because we had a Christmas tree in the corner of the living room, and around that was nothing but presents. And I remember just standing there in like absolute awe. And it was right after my mom graduated nursing school and making money, really good, decent amount of money for the first time. And we were able, because of that, to have one of the greatest Christmases that we've ever had. And I remember walking into my mom's bedroom because she had just gotten up, and she could see the look on my face. And I'll never forget that smile on her face. And she's asking me, "Well, are you excited?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
That Christmas Day, I promised y'all finally happened. And there's presents stacked up under the tree. And we began to hand them out, and you were sitting on the floor. I was in the chair, you were in the floor right there. About 2 feet away, and we were piled up with presents. Christmas ain't in their mouths, And you began to open them. I never saw kids so happy about life. Because the year before we had nothing.
Right.
We brought a Christmas tree for that year and everything.
Thank you. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you. I just kept thanking her, And I knew that meant more to her than I will ever know. The atmosphere, my mom and my grandmother in the kitchen preparing and fixing Christmas dinner, everybody, the family, Gemma, Carlos, Gloria, Sylvie, Helen, just being there and just, if there was truly an actual DeLorean time machine, I would definitely go back to that time and relive it, because it meant that much to me. And when I think of 704, I think about that day. With that financial stability in place came new opportunity to move into a better living environment that Sylvia McGee believed was better for everyone, for Chad, for Chris, and her mother. This, however, did not sit well with Lena Overcash at all. Moving for the first time out of 704, it was livable. It was okay. The place was old, but it was still maintainable and it was still livable. Just, Mom thought that we deserved better. And we needed to live in a place where it was more, more efficient.
When it really came down to it, we didn't really have to move per se. We really just wanted to, because at that time the house was still very livable. It was old, obviously. But, Mom found that house that was across from Helen's, and there was a really good deal for it. So, just to improve living conditions and move into something better, And I think at that time, even Sylvie had moved out of that house, because she actually lived in a house not too far, just a couple of streets down and behind, that house there where we moved across from Helen's. So she had already moved, I believe, and was living there. And, we just really wanted more room, and more updated housing, I guess. Something nicer. So, and Mom knew she couldn't leave Granny there by herself anymore. She had gotten so old that she couldn't take care of herself like she needed to anymore. So the only recourse was to bring her with us. So I do remember them having multiple conversations about it. And obviously, again, Granny was stuck in her ways. Again, like I said, being a product of her time, you never threw out anything or stopped using anything until it was absolutely necessary. It was either used up or it was broken beyond repair. And also, people of that era were more conservative, I guess you could say, than people are today, whereas they wanted to keep the status quo. So for her, seeing that the house was still livable, she didn't understand really the need to move just for convenience sake, because they didn't do that. They moved for necessity, either because they were looking for jobs or they were looking for better conditions. Like I said, growing up in the Depression, jobs were few and far between, so a lot of families packed up and moved around a lot trying to find work. So it was ingrained in her from an early age that, again, if it's usable, keep it, and don't toss it until it's absolutely necessary.
After her whole life and her whole memories have been there with Uncle Mountain and Chevy Joe and everybody, it'd been just like me, when we haven't been in this house probably 30 years now, but I have a lot of precious memories.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
And like I tell, memories are our own.
Oh, yeah.
Your memories are yours, and what's precious to you may not be precious to everybody else, but they're priceless to me.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there's things hanging on these walls, and I know you look at them, and they don't mean, that much to you, but to you, they're priceless because Frankie gave them to me. That's my cross for led my walk, that red one, while I led walk 123. The team gave me that cross there with the land, I'll have it there. They gave me that. That's priceless. Then that deal above the mount, my daughter gave me that, and that's, there's things that are just, may not mean nothing to you, but to me. And to you there, and that's why the house meant to Aunt Lena. It was her home. It was. And it was hard for her.
When we moved into it for the first time, when Mom really needed a place for me and Chris to be, Granny really provided that for us. And at that time, it became a house of security for Mom and for us, to be. But years later, or years down the line, Mom was then looking at it like, okay, this place, it has served its purpose. Now we need to be somewhere where it'll be better for us all.
This picture was taken by Chad McGee while Lena Overcash was doing a final walkthrough
of a home she's always known since the early 1940s, knowing she'll never return. She walked in every room, looked around, as if to say goodbye. Even though it was really hard on Lena to move out of her home, she did realize shortly after the move that it wasn't such a bad idea after all.
You know, after Mom took her over there to see the house, she ended up liking it to the point where plus being across the street from Helen and being again fairly close to Sylvie after she had moved, she saw more of the benefit of the move than not moving.
Grady liked the place. She thought, okay, I can see your point, and this is a better environment, this is a better place to be. And she really started liking it. So that took a lot of the guilt off Mom and off a lot of us, you know. But
yeah, she reluctantly agreed, but really at that point, her physical capabilities had diminished to where she could no longer maintain the property herself anyway. And her mental capacity was starting to degrade to where a lot of times after we moved into the new house, she didn't realize she wasn't even in the old house.
My grandmother's mind started to slip, and, you know, she started to have conversations with people that wasn't there. I'm not going to say she had any like Alzheimer's or anything like that, because she was never diagnosed with it.
But to a certain extent, that's, you know, the way it was with her. She started living more in the past than the present, to where she would call me by names of people, you know, that I never knew, which were apparently, you know, either her brothers or family members of long past. And she would talk about having to go plant fields and go out and, you know, tend the crop, go out, you know, and even hang the wash on the line, you know, stuff like that. Whereas, you know, obviously we had a washer and dryer and all that kind of stuff there at the house, but she had digressed back into the past. So even though she did agree to the move, it wasn't long after that that her cognitive ability allowed her to believe that she was still where she wanted to be anyway.
And it wasn't that long after we moved into our Illinois house first that she really started to decline, and she really started basically to fade away. And you know, as I think about it now, it makes sense. You know, we took her out of her place. We took her out of her environment. And in doing so, as the place deteriorated and nature took over and whatnot, it's like, you know, when she left, a huge piece of her just went with it. And it wasn't that long after that she passed away. Shortly after Lena's passing, life for everybody was starting to get back to normal until tragedy strikes. Now, I don't know why she even thought it was even a good idea. I guess because she had done it and she got away with it. But it caught up with her, unfortunately. And what she would do, I guess when she washed her underwear and she washed her socks, she would put them on this electrical box heater, on those little box heaters. And she would put those on there to dry, which would be quicker and faster to dry. I guess it was because she didn't have a dryer. I'm not exactly sure on that. Or if her dryer went out, I'm not even sure. But I know that one morning she went to take a shower and she had put her socks on that electrical heater. And after she turned it on, she went in, she started taking a shower. Well, not too long after that, she thought she could smell smoke. And when she opened up the curtain to look at the door, there was smoke from the outside coming into the inside of that door. And so she's like, uh-oh. So when she opened up the bathroom door, the whole living room was engulfed in flames. As she described it at the time, there were fire dancing on the ceiling and throughout the walls. And she immediately closed the door. And she thought her quick exit would be going through her window, but she chickened out and she didn't want to, risk getting, all cut up, because she was being naked and stuff. I mean, she didn't want to take that chance. So what she did was she got a towel, and the biggest towel that she could find. She wet it as much as she could wet it, wrapped it around her, opened up the bathroom door, and ran from the living room or through the living room and out the door. But unfortunately, in doing that, she suffered some very extremely serious burns on her back.
And it damn near killed her. She lost everything in the fire. I mean, it didn't burn fully to the ground, but it might as well have. It gutted the place. And she ended up with horrendous burns on the back of her, on the back of her back, to the point where she had to go to, I believe it was Dallas that she came to for a few months while they treated the burns and whatnot.
And she went through hell with that for a while. I remember her coming into the house that we were living in at the time, not 1108 South First. We had moved out of that and moved into another location. And she came out of there, and Mom being an LVN nurse and knowing nursing stuff and skills, Gloria allowed Mom to, work on her back. And I remember sitting in the living room while that was taking place in the bathroom and just hearing her scream in agony, in absolute pure agony.
And after that, she went on more of a disability type situation, and she ended up in a house close to, well, at the time it was another restaurant / diner, but it's now that auto lot there on Main Street. But she lived on the side street over there, and I could probably find the house if I needed to. Ironically, like I said, there wasn't much of that house left.
A short time later, infection set in Gloria's back, and she went to the hospital. And not too long after that, she passed away. After Dean McGee left his family high and dry, he went on with his life. Over the years, he tried making contact with Chris, Chad, and Sylvia with little to no effort, except for a rare few occasions here and there. He had gotten diagnosed with cancer. I'm not exactly sure when we found out or how the news came about, but it was, I believe it was the 90s that word started to get around that my dad had gotten cancer.
Well, my dad, I guess, gave me a call and told me about it. And he was working at the Stanford Tire recycling plant at the time, and knew that he was sick, and just didn't know what was wrong with him. He'd been to the hospital several times and back and forth to the doctor, but then found out that he had cancer. And the cancer that he had was rapid growing. I mean, it didn't take long, and it got all over his body real quick.
And knowing he didn't have long to live, he sent out a request for one last final time to make amends with his sons, Chad and Chris McGee, before he dies. So Mom looks at me and Chris, and she's like, Doris came over to her work and let her know that your dad wants to see the both of you, make amends, make peace, and to visit with you for the last time before he dies. And Chris, he was having none of it. As soon as Mom made that announcement, he's like, no, I do not care. He can effing die. He can burn in hell. I do not care for him anymore. I will not do it. And Mom, she's like, hey, look, he is your dad. He's going to die. He wants to see you for one last time. At least give him that. And Mom looks at me, and I didn't hesitate. I said, yeah, I'll go see him. I will go see him. I remember walking into his bedroom and sitting down right next to him on the side of the bed. And he's trying to tell me the best that he could that he was sorry for doing what he did. He didn't know why he did what he did, and he deeply regretted it. And I put my arm around him as carefully as I could, because I was literally afraid I was going to break him in half, because that's how frail he literally was and looked. And I got real close to him, and I said, Dad, I forgive you. I forgive you for everything. It's in the past now. And he tried to put his arm around me, but all he could do was put his head on my shoulder out here, and he just cried and wept, and I just held him for the longest time. And that was closure that I needed. I mean, really, it really was. We're not perfect. We get caught up in the flesh. We get caught up in the flesh a lot. We do things we don't want to do. And we do things that we regret. You wish a million times we never did. You wish a million times we never did. But what's done is done, and there's nothing to do but to forgive. And I felt so relieved that I finally let it go. In that moment, I finally let it go. And it was the biggest weight off of my shoulders. That I've ever felt. And I don't know why my brother, no, I know why he can't forgive him, but I wish he could. I really wish he could. Because forgiveness is so powerful. It's even in the Bible. Forgive those that hurt you. Forgive those that curses and that condemns you. Because I know not letting go and not forgiving is holding that heart, holding that guilt, or holding that anger inside. Can kill someone. It can damage you. It can definitely keep you from God's love. And a day or two later, he passed away. And the first thing that I thought of when word came down that he had died is that, man, I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I went. I'm glad that I saw him and I visited him and I forgave him and I let all that shit go. And I just hope wherever he is now, he's in peace. Chris, Chad, and Sylvia eventually moved out of the house at 1108 South 1st. and moved downtown in a small little house across the street from the laundromat. It was soon after this Chris moved out and went to Dallas with Brandy to pursue a better life. Although that was quite the adjustment for Chad and Sylvia, everything, however, was going smooth until one day Sylvia, due to unfortunate circumstances, lost her job at the Haskell Healthcare Center and had to make a life-changing decision that wasn't easy. After Mom lost her job due to an unfortunate situation that she had no control over, she wasn't working anymore, and we couldn't afford to pay the payments at the house that we were living in at the time. And because of that, we had nowhere to go. So Mom's thinking was to move back into 704.
My first thought was not that it was going to necessarily be a bad idea, but it was going to be a bad time, because I knew the state that the house had deteriorated to, since at that point it had probably been 10 or 12 years since anybody lived there. Somewhere around there. So, and y'all, as well as I do, you have pictures of that time. What it was or what it had been was nowhere where it was at the time. Fixtures were gone, windows were gone, siding was falling off the ceiling and the walls, but, again, y'all had to do what y'all had to do.
I mean, we didn't owe on a house payment. We owed on taxes, but we didn't owe a house payment because that was already paid for. And she had a lot of guilt of convincing her mother, Lena Overcash, to move out of her house and into what she thought would be a better environment, not only for her mother, but for us all. And you can't fault her for that. You can't fault Sylvia McGee for that, because in her mind, in her thinking, we need to be in a better environment. We need to be in a better place. Not that there's anything wrong with this one right now. We just need to be in a better place. And she wanted nothing but the best from all of us. And she wanted to make sure that we were going to be okay. So she convinced her mother to move out of 704, but she held a lot of guilt in her for that. So she thought, you know what? Even though Lena's not here anymore, I'm going to fix that house. I'm going to fix it up. And I'm going to make her proud of me. Now, logical thinking is she's not working, she's not making any money. How in the world is that even going to work?
Abandoned, alone, and forgotten. For 3 years the old house sat, decaying as time took its toll. However, in 1997, the old house would once again be given another chance, with a facelift. But was it too late?
When we decided to move back in that house, it seemed impossible in a way, because there was junk all in Sylvia's cast off furniture, really, and it had this old cast in there. We decided we'd go over there, we'd get that cast out of that. That was the last thing we did. Well, we got to market, we tried to Could turn it sideways to go through the front door. That wasn't working too well. We tried that several methods. None of them worked. And finally, up to the door came this guy. I barely knew, but I knew his name.
Yeah, Jack Mouse, and your mom and Brack over there working, so I said, I'm going to see what's going on. Cause he like dang cats, oh man, that thing was heavy.
And we got him stopped off to talk. So we had the conversation. He came up so he could repair houses. He looked around the house and said that he thought he'd help us out.
Yeah, yes he did. That's when we started room by room. I think we started on the windows first. We placed the windows room by room, then we went through there, then got to the rooms. Then we started on the electrical wire. We done the electrical wire. I had to put new brake boxes in, restroom sinks, bathroom sinks, kitchen sink, tubs.
And from that day on, Johnny was as good as hired. Because we needed help if he could do it. So I more or less made a deal with him.
After Chad and Sylvia McGee lived in the old house for nearly a year trying to fix it up, the realization of the situation could no longer be ignored, and Chad and Sylvia realized they had to move out of 704 again. But this time, permanently.
So moving out of it for the last time, permanently, Mom was very depressed, and she was really down on herself. But she knew it was she knew it was an impossible task. That she was trying to do something that was really, really, impossible. But she was trying to make the impossible possible. And it wasn't for the lack of effort. Most definitely was not. So after we moved out of it for the last time, vandals over time and over the years, re-broke the windows, took out the doors, destroyed the closets, and after a while the house was just an actual skeleton shell of what it was. And a few years after Chad and Sylvia move out of the 704 house for the last time, Sylvia McGee, on March 16th, 2001, visits 704 for the last time.
Cactus patch over there with another plant. It looks like it's taking over that part of our ground. See over there?
Still there.
What?
That plant Granny planted a long time ago. Still there.
I don't remember looking this bad.
Yeah, it did. Granny's old walker.
Somebody been in here and strung stuff around.
Nah, it pretty much looks like this when we moved out.
The thing I was gonna do, I don't even think I feel.
Watch out.
You think it's picking me out?
What?
My voice?
Yes.
This is the room that was built on this house after.
Right there.
What are you looking at?
The add-on.
Yeah. Okay, come on in.
This was my sister's bedroom.
For many, many years.
So we moved in here when I went to nursing school, and she got mad and moved out. Then it became my bedroom. You can still see where the pictures in this room were. And that's from about 6 years ago.
Just never went away. Now there's the hole. Johnny damn near killed himself by up there trying to rewire this thing. Damn near went through the roof.
And the cardboard we put up there
And damn near went through that one too.
just to block out the dark hole of the ceiling. And the windows, get the windows. So Chad and I put these window glasses in one day. It was a pretty nice day in February when we came in here and did that.
Yeah, it was. But boy, did we have hell doing it. Fun, but hell.
Only broke one.
In my room.
Get a shot of this hole. I think when we moved in here, we had it covered up. But apparently,
Ooh, that's scary. Wiring.
bad looking.
Wiring looking at me like a
We
snake.
moved in here because I had no job,
True.
and we didn't have anything but Chad's check. And
That's true.
we had to live somewhere. My grandmother died, and this, of course, not there because it was added onto, but this area of the house, her bed was there.
I'm getting that right now.
I was 3, 4 years old,
Yeah.
and she died right here in this room.
That had to be a sad day.
I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember
Now there's the plastic you put up.
plastic to keep from
The cold out.
into this. Get that up there. Get in there. And this is why we decided to leave, because it started leaking again in that corner, and we knew it was useless. Sweep out that way and get that barn that Carlos got made.
Now that's a very old barn. I have many memories in that barn too.
I still can't believe the window broken. Unbroken windows here.
Thing me and Chris put out many years ago to climb the tree to get on the roof. Interesting. Very interesting.
I remember her getting dressed. I was sobbing in the living room. I'm physically shaken. I am mad. I am angry at God, at Jesus. I'm literally cursing their name. How dare they do this? How could they let this happen? How could they just let this happen without stopping it? Because I didn't have a relationship with God or Jesus at that time. As a matter of fact, I just wasn't going to church, period. And, for years and years. And so I never really got the true education of it really. And honestly, it depends on what church you go to. It depends on what education that you get. I was very blessed to find ALCF and get the truth. How God's law works, how God is, and just the truth. But back then, on January 31st of 2005, I didn't know squat. All I knew was God was mighty, He was powerful, and He was in control. And if He could stop it, then He could. I know better now. And I know more now than I obviously did. But for 6.5 years, the devil had me around his finger, and he had a grip on me, and he did not let me go. For 6.5 years, that was pure dark, hell, and the toughest, roughest time I could literally remember.
honestly. You can, I mean, people that was around Knox City at that time, well, you can ask them, man. You can ask them. You can, you know, you can ask them, like, how was Chad like at that time, and they'll tell you. They didn't approach me because I had that look like, yeah, you even talk to me, I will kill you. I will never forget that early morning phone call from Merkel Nursing Center on July 26 of 2012, telling me that my mom had made a turn for the worst, and if there was any possible way to come down, now would be a good time to do it. And I couldn't get there. I had no ride. You know, I literally had no ride. And the way that it looked, I mean, I couldn't just call Doug Mountain Coach and say, hey, Gail, I need a ride now. This is what's happening. My mom's dying. I got to get there pronto. Come and set it up and come and get me. Or set it up and do something. It doesn't work that way. They need at least 24 hours in advance to set any ride up. And honestly, the way the nurse was making it sound, my mom didn't have an hour, let alone enough time for me to set up a ride and go and get there. I just did not have enough time to do it. Period. So I kept getting informed with what was going on. I called my brother as soon as I learned anything, and he said, okay, keep me informed and keep me informed of what's going down, what's going on. And I did. Every little detail I got, I gave to him. You know, it was almost like a three-way call, almost. But I give the nursing staff at Merkel Nursing Center all the credit in the world, because they were absolutely just badass awesome, because they stayed on top of it. They were truly professional, and they did everything they could for my mother, and I will forever be grateful for them in more ways than they will ever know and they will ever understand, and that is the damn truth.
The 704 house was in bad shape. Vandals and squatters had wreaked havoc on the old place over the years, leaving the house in shambles.
Of course, the saddest thing that I've ever heard my mother testify is that she said that she grew up here as a baby and she walked away from it. Of course, looking at it now,
She feels like she killed it. She feels like a murderer.
I felt like a murderer. Because we left it alone. We didn't stay with it. It's kind of like a family member died. And I know we shared it with them, you know. They were left alone to die. And that's wrong. But to this day, I don't know what else we could have done. But that little house will never be forgotten.
The city of Haskell had condemned the old house to be demolished. Chad had been in talks with one of the city workers who was going to demolish the house and made an agreement to let Chad know when the demo was going to take place so Chad could capture it on film. That never happened. This is the last image ever taken on March 15th, 2014, before the house was demolished.
I was beyond pissed. I knew what I wanted. I knew how I wanted to capture the house coming down. I had everything planned out. And he never called me. He never told me anything. And this was very critical to this movie. The perfect ending that I had in my head, now gone. Completely gone. I was pissed.
Well, I mean, I was just shocked to see that it had already been torn down, and I know that you was trying to get out there to set up cameras and stuff. So, my first thought was, I hope Chad was able to do what he wanted to do, right? Of course, when we got together and I talked to you about it, you said no, you didn't even have any idea that it had already been torn down, because the guy in charge was supposed to let you know, but of course they didn't, right? So you wasn't able to go out there because you wanted to get the bulldozers and everything bringing it down, but it is what it is. You know, it's one of those situations where, you know, you expect to see something and then you don't, you know, so it was shocking at first. And then, you know, you have all the emotions of, you know, well, this is where we used to live and all that kind of stuff. You know, but really my only real concern was you able to get what you needed to get to do the filming. And you weren't, so.
But looking back on it now, I'm glad I didn't see it come down. I'm glad I was spared of hearing that wood crack, break. I was spared of watching it fall. I was spared of the emotion I was going to feel. I had psyched myself up. No. I'll be in director mode. I'll be in film mode. I ain't gonna feel anything until after it's over. No. It would have hurt me. It would have affected me. Of all the houses I've seen in my life in person be demolished, this one that would have gutted me. It would have gutted me. And I am very thankful I was spared of actually seeing it come down. Very thankful.
Like the house may not be here, but the house was just a structure. You know, the land is still here, and the memories that were made on the land are still here. I can just feel, I can feel the emotion, I can feel the love, ooh, wow, I'm gonna get emotional. You made me cry, Tim. Seriously, you could feel that there was people here that loved this place. And I don't know what all the memories are, but I can tell that there were memories. All right, listen, just take a minute to take it in. Listen to the birds, to the breeze, feel the breeze. Look at the purple flowers. I mean, there's so many things about this that's beautiful. You know, I mean, yeah, of course there's dirt, there's dead trees and, a fence line and, houses around that are not the most appealing looking houses. But if you just sit here and stand for just a minute and you listen, you can hear the birds chirping. You could actually close your eyes, like you said, close your eyes and you can feel it. You know what I mean? That's pretty special. That's a special thing. A house doesn't make a home. A house never made a home. It was the people and the memories, and I think it's really cool that you're doing this. I mean, I really do.
I whisper in your ear the words you want to hear. You feel the wind and it reminds you. It happens every time you stop and close your eyes. You can't deny what lives inside you. Well, I know it's hard to see what is meant to be when yesterday is so far behind you. Deep inside your soul, no, I'm
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart